Hello everybody, it's Kara from On Book Garden, and today I'm starting a reading vlog for a project, I don't know, like an ongoing project I guess. Basically, I'm still trying to figure out what I like in romance, or not so much what I like, but I'm trying to find it. Like I know the tropes I like, I know what tropes I don't like, I know character stuff, and like basically I just want to improve my accuracy rate because I don't read a ton of romance. And I have found a few books that I've really enjoyed, but there's been, I think, more misses than hits. At least it feels like that, and I would like to fix that. Also, this is your like warning now that this is gonna be, this vlog is gonna take place over a very long period of time because unlike a lot of people, romance does not read very quick for me usually. Like if it's a romance subplot in a different genre, then I can fly through it, but like for whatever reason, romance books themselves usually take me longer. I expect it to take me a while to read these books, and also unlike a lot of people, I can't read very many of them back to back usually. So that's my excuse for why this is gonna take forever. But I have like a nice little stack here, quite a few actually, and some of these books are ones that I picked out that I think I'm gonna really like. Some of them are like specific recommendations from friends or people I follow, so there's like a mix here. These are all contemporary or historical. I didn't really think about including fantasy romance, although I should have, so maybe that'll be like a part 2 at some point, I don't know. But yeah, I'm also realizing that I maybe weighted this a little more towards contemporary than I should have, because contemporary romance specifically is something that I have to be in a very particular mood for, but also I think more of the issues I've had with some of the romance books I've read have been in historicals. But let's start with the contemporaries, because I have more of those. One of them is Dating Dr. Dill by Nisha Sharma. This is a Taming of the Shrew retelling, so that's one of the reasons I thought I would like it. Actually, you can see I have a bookmark. I've read like the first chapter or so, and we'll see how this goes. So far, like I know the setup is here for a reason, but I hate reading about how her family treats her so much. So even though I know that's gonna get better, it's still very frustrating right now. So maybe I'll start with a different book. Then probably the book I am most confident about is From Lukov with Love by Mariana Zapata. I'm so excited. I've never read a Mariana Zapata book. I don't know if she says it Mariana or Mariana, but I've never read a book by this author, but I have heard that she is like top tier slow burn romance. Like her books are like so slow burn that people get angry about how slow it is, and I'm like, that's what I like. Like perfect, sign me up. And this is the one that I think I'm gonna like the most. It involves two figure skaters who end up teaming up very reluctantly, so this is like a hate to love story, and they end up obviously falling in love. And I just, the things I've heard about like the angst and the longing and the build up, I am just pretty confident about that one. Then a personal recommendation I have here is Girl Gone Viral by Alicia Rai. This is from, this was recommended to me by my friend Taylor from Page Screen Taylor, and this is one I actually had read a couple chapters for like a while back when I first got this, just to see what it was like, and I'm already really loving it, so I'm feeling pretty good about this one as well. And I think this is actually, I think this might be like a bodyguard romance, which is not a trope I usually like, but I'm liking this one so far, so also feeling pretty good about that. And then I also have, I guess this is kind of speculative actually. I put it in the contemporary category, but it's like slightly sci-fi contemporary. That is The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. I have read The Unhoneymooners by them, and I really loved it. That's been one of my favorite romance books so far. So maybe I will enjoy this one as well. I actually wasn't sure I was gonna pick this up. I wasn't really interested in it, even though I had heard good things, because this involves like a dating app that's supposed to find your soulmate, and the the creator of this app gets matched up with this woman, and like the company wants them to date for a while as a publicity stunt. They don't have to do anything physical that they don't want to. It's just like dating for a while. It would be good for the company. And so the female character says yes, she'll do it, even though they had like a really bad interaction at the beginning, and then the romance goes from there. And the reason I wasn't sure I wanted to pick this up is because I wasn't really into the whole, like, I don't know, the soulmate premise seems a little weird to me, because obviously they're gonna end up together because it's a romance, but then that would be kind of proving that the app works, which to me is not romantic. Like, I don't know, I just feel like weird about it. But I saw Mari from My Name is Marina's talk about this, and she actually said that it handles that very well. Like the book actually talks about that. So I'm interested to see how I feel about that one. Another one I'm like fairly confident about is If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy. This is the first book in a series that Disney is doing that is like romance novels very loosely inspired by the fairy tales. So this is a Cinderella retelling with a plus-size main character. Also involves, I think, a reality show. And this was also a gift from my lovely friend Vendi from Caught Between Pages, so I'm really looking forward to getting to this. And yeah, this just sounds really lovely. So actually, looking at that little stack, even though I'm nervous about contemporary romances, I feel pretty confident about a lot of those. So maybe I just need to be more confident about my choices. Maybe that's the lesson here. And then I also have 3 historical romances picked out. And then another personal recommendation here, I have Unmask Me If You Can by Shauna Galen. This is a recommendation from my friend Julia from Shakespeare and Such. She loved this book, and I feel like I'll love it as well. This is another one that I believe deals with some very dark topics, and I just feel like I'm gonna really like the development of the relationship. Our male lead is named Jasper, and he was in some kind of incident or confrontation where he ended up getting very badly scarred on his face, and he's really self-conscious about that. He's kind of hidden himself away. So his arc is a lot about like learning to like love himself. Honestly, I feel like that's not something we say a lot in the context of male characters, but I think we should. And then our female main character, she has a daughter. I believe that she was actually raped and she got pregnant, and now she is raising her daughter, and so she obviously, for very understandable reasons, has a really hard time trusting men, trusting new people, and so that's like her arc is kind of about that. And I've just heard that, like, I remember Julia talking about their romance and like how like sweet it is, and how like there they are for each other, and how they don't like push the other person, and that just sounds like, I just feel like I'm gonna really like that like romance aspect. The Suffragette Scandal by Courtney Milan. So I know Bethany really loves Courtney Milan, and then I also, my friend Kelly from Cozy Reader Kelly has been reading her books lately, and she really enjoys them, and she, like me, doesn't read a ton of historical romance, and this is like the author she's found that she's like really loved her books, so that makes me think I might love them as well. I actually have read a tiny bit of this one, but I would need to start over because it's been a while. But I was really enjoying the writing so far, and this obviously involves the women's suffrage movement, which is another reason I wanted to pick this up. And I know Courtney Milan always has some kind of like topic that she talks about in her books, which I also like the sound of. Hey y'all, so I'm obviously filming this clip on a different day. I don't know how I'm gonna cut the rest of it to make this not completely jarring, but I realized something. I was talking about one book thinking it was a completely different one, which I was feeling very silly about until I like acquired the other book, the one that I thought I was talking about, and like, it's not my fault. Like, look at how similar these covers are and everything. Anyway, but I am interested in reading both of these. Actually, both of these are recommendations from Beautifully Bookish Bethany, but I decided that not only would I like get the book that I thought I was going to be reading, but I would actually keep the other one in, the one that I was like doing the wrong summary for. So now I have 2, and while I was at it, I thought I had to add one of the books from like one of the queens of romance. Like, I had to pick the Nora Roberts book that I had, because I've never read a Nora Roberts, and I'm like, if I'm trying out romance, like, or not that I haven't read romance before, but if I'm trying out like different kinds of romance, different authors, you know, I figured I had to pick one from the queen herself. So I picked The Villa, which is the only one I own from her, and it's one of the ones that sounded most interesting to me. It's a standalone, and it involves a couple of, I think they're both Italian families. At least one of them is, in the Napa Valley in California, and they're like rival, I think, winemaking families maybe? And I believe there are 2 romances. Like, one of them is like the grandchildren of these 2 different families who are rivals, and then they end up working together. I think there's also like a murder in this. There's like a murder mystery element, like I know Nora Roberts often does. So that's gonna be interesting. And then the other romance is between those characters, like grandparents. So like their grandparents had married other people, and now I think they're gonna be getting together. So like none of the characters involved are related by blood. But I'm excited for this. I've heard like really good things about this book in particular. I read just like the first like page or so of the prologue, and I'm already really drawn in by the writing, which I know that's something that Nora Roberts is known for. So I'm excited to read my first Nora book. And then just to, I decided like I would just go to Bethany's reviews for these so that I don't mix them up again. So thank you, Bethany, for doing a better summary of this book than I could give. Okay, so the book that I was describing, but which was not the book I was holding up, is Her Wicked Marquess by Stacey Reed. Bethany describes this one as slow burn, steamy historical with a smart heroine, a layered hero, a good dose of angst, and a lot to say about power dynamics, sexual assault, rape culture, and the marginalized. So the reason I was interested in this one is because I tend to like romance books that have like a heavier on the plot element, and like the themes or social commentary, and this one definitely sounds like it's going to do that. I know it's going to be heavy to read in parts, but I just thought that's really interesting. I'm a big believer in books that can have like really like warm and fuzzy parts, but that also deal with some really heavy issues, and I think a romance book that deals with that kind of thing is like by definition going to combine those. I guess I should actually give you some of what's going on. So Marianne is a bookish wallflower who doesn't want to get pushed into an arranged marriage with somebody she really doesn't like or trust. And then Nicholas, the male lead, is a notorious rake, which I don't tend to like rakes, but I'm hoping this is going to be one of the cases where he seems like one, but he actually isn't. Apparently he is pursuing vigilante justice for a woman who he knew who had some really horrible things happen to her. And so I think Marianne ends up staging things to look like she was compromised by Nicholas so that she can get out of this marriage. And of course, her and Nicholas end up finding love. And then the book that I was holding up was The Spinster and the Rake by Eva Devon. And this one also involves the characters caught in a compromising position, although I don't think it was intentional. So our heroine is, what's her name? Georgiana Bly, who also is kind of like, seems like a bookish spinster. Everyone thinks she's on the shelf. And then the male lead is Edward Stanhope, the icy Duke of Thornfield. And then they get caught having a steamy kiss, which means of course that they are expected to get married. So according to Bethany's review, this was pitched as My Fair Lady meets Pride and Prejudice. And I'm like, I love both of those things. So I'm really intrigued by that. Bethany says, if you enjoy a grumpy, good-hearted hero and smart heroine who gives as good as she gets, this is definitely for you. And I'm pretty sure the hero is meant to be on the autism spectrum as well, which is cool to see. So all of that sounds really interesting. I know that actually both of these books might be on the steamier side compared to what I tend to pick up, but I figure if I'm, you know, trying new romance things, this might be good. And there were other aspects of these both that do sound really interesting and that appeal to me. So that was kind of my part 2 of adding books to this project, or correcting books that I put in this project. This is a lot, so I don't know if I'm gonna have to break this into 2 parts, and once again, it might not have a lot of extra content. Like, I'm just gonna be, I think, talking about the books. So yeah, this one and the Shauna Galen book, I think are the historical ones I'm most confident about. But yeah, like looking at my stack, like I was saying about the contemporaries, I actually have like a good number of books that I feel reasonably confident I'm going to at least somewhat enjoy. That was a lot of qualifiers, but basically what I'm trying to say is maybe I don't need to be as nervous about this as I thought. I don't know. Yeah, so that's a lot of books. So I don't know which one I'm actually going to start with, so you'll hear from me when I pick one up. I wanted to update you guys because I did start one of the other books. That is The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. This is a contemporary romance that has a tiny bit of like sci-fi or futuristic because it's technology that is a little more advanced than ours. Basically, there is an app that is supposed to be able to match you to your soulmate. And our heroine is named Jess. She has a young daughter named Juno, which I already really love their relationship. I really like the way Juno is written. So Jess is our heroine. She's a single mom, and then our hero is Dr. River Pena, and he is one of the like founders for the app, or one of the original people who worked on it. And they get matched, and Jess is pretty skeptical about the app, but they get such a high match. Like, they've never gotten a match this high before. That the company is really excited because they're about to debut the app publicly, and they're like, this could be great publicity for us. So they offer Jess some money if she will basically do like a test run. Like they want to test to see if her and Dr. Pena could actually work. And they're not like paying her to do anything she doesn't want to do, nothing physical or anything. There's no like expectations on what they're going to do. They're just like, we're offering you a stipend if you will like give this a chance, basically. And Jess does end up agreeing, and it makes it a little more complicated because her and Dr. Pena actually have met and interacted before, and they did not hit it off. And that's something where I think it was very believable why they would, like, it's kind of one of those situations where like they were both seeing each other on like really bad days for a first impression, you know? So they're kind of working through that, but they're already starting to get to know each other like better. I am like 150 something pages into this, and I'm liking it so far. I don't think I'm liking it as much as the Unhoneymooners so far, but I am really enjoying it. I really like Jess and Juno, like I said, and I also like River. Like, he is definitely rude. This is definitely a romance that starts out kind of antagonistic, but I don't think it's like an extreme enemies to lover situation. It's more like, how do you get past a bad first impression of somebody? And I think that's being done well. I'm not as invested in River so far as I am with Jess. Like, I think Jess is like a really well-written character, but I am liking their interactions. I also think that maybe some readers would find the setup to take too long because it's about 120 something, 130 something pages, I think, before they actually go on the first date for the project. But I actually like that. I tend to like more plot heavy romances anyway, but I also like that in this one, we really get a sense of like who Jess is, what her community is like. I love the family relationships in this book, like how close Jess is with her, I think it's her grandparents, and then so like her daughter's great grandparents, and like I just love the close family ties there. Like, I was really liking getting to know like the characters and everything in the setup, so it didn't bother me. But that is something to know if you like your romance to start pretty much early on. Maybe this is not a good pick for you. Also, I'm not the biggest fan of Jess's best friend Fizzy, which I feel like is an unpopular opinion from what I've seen. I find her a little annoying and one note, but I also think part of that could just be that she's like a very what I consider a very typical best friend for the kind of protagonist that Jess is. I do think that for my personal taste, there's a little more, like the like physical characteristics are like a little bit repetitive to the point where I'm like, I get it. River Pena is like so hot that it's annoying to you, which like I know people like that, so fair enough, but just like it's repeated over and over and that's getting on my nerves a little. Yeah, that's my update. I'm already talking way too much about this book, but excited to keep going. Hey everybody, so it has been a long time no see on my end. Obviously you guys won't notice a difference, but that's okay because I warned you. I think my style of reading vlogs is just multi-week, multi-month projects. So whatever. But I have 2 books to update you on. I have 1 DNF and 1 book that I finally finished. Like my first book that I finished for this project. So I'll start with the DNF. Dating Dr. Dill by Nisha Sharma, which probably is not a surprise because I feel like everybody has been disliking this book, at least in my like bookternet circle. So I read 1 chapter of this and I wasn't really feeling it, but that wasn't like a hard DNF at that point. I just wasn't having a good time. Like the main character, the heroine's family, is horrible to her. I hated the way they treated her and talked to her, and it felt like that was something that was clearly going to be set up for like development later, like that would get less as the book went on, but it was just a really unpleasant vibe, you know, for that first chapter. So I hadn't even gotten to the romance part yet. So I put this down. I'm like, I'm not going to worry about reading this one right now. I'm not in the mood for it. Like clearly it's not working for me right now. And then actually Sarah from Sarah's Perusals, I saw her review, her 1-star review on Goodreads, and one of the things that she mentioned specifically is a specific pet peeve of mine in romance, and that is that the hero names his dick, which is one of my least favorite things. I'm sure there are people out there who find that sexy or it wouldn't keep happening in books, but I hate that. So that was kind of my first like red flag, and I like was talking to Sarah about it and saying like I'm, you know, tempted to DNF it because I hate that in romance. Like that's like I can't even explain to you guys how much I loathe that trope. So I was like, I really don't know that I'd have a good time with this. And she's like, honestly, I would not have liked it anyway. Like it would have gotten 1 star for me anyway, even if he hadn't done that like a middle schooler. And so we were talking about it and I mentioned how like the family was really horrible. And she's like, oh, they get even worse. Like the way they treat the heroine gets even worse. And then I looked up like more reviews of this book, and everything I saw just like confirmed that this would not be a book for me. So we have our first DNF of the video, only 1 chapter in. And if you guys are new, maybe you don't know this, but I very rarely DNF books. When I do, it tends to be near the beginning. So here we go. We have a DNF. But that's okay, because I think that is a useful data point to have. And then speaking of data, I did just finish The Soulmate Equation by Christina Lauren. Finally finished it. I don't even know how long I've been reading this book. I have it in my notes somewhere, but it's definitely been at least a month. Yeah, so I've already updated you guys on kind of how I was feeling. And pretty much like similarly, I think rating wise, this is probably going to be like a 3.5 stars, which is kind of a bummer just because even though I wasn't like loving this book, it was feeling more like a 4 stars for a while, but then like the 3rd act breakup happened and that was really irritating, even though I think the way that was handled was good. So then it kind of like, I was like down to like a 3.5 or a 3.75, but then the book started creeping up in my estimation again. I really liked the way some of the plot stuff was handled. But then just like the epilogue just like really pissed me off again, and just because it was doing more of the things that had already annoyed me in the rest of the book, and it was so long. Like this epilogue was like 20 or 30 pages. I could not believe how long that epilogue was, especially for a romance book that I feel like they're usually, in my very limited experience, I feel like they're normally pretty quick kind of wrap up, and it felt unnecessary. Like I understand why it happened, and like there were some really lovely moments in it, but like I was saying, it did more of the things that were already bugging me. Like one thing that irritated me throughout the book, which I think I already talked about, is like the frequency of the sex scenes and the repetitiveness of them. Like it just got to the point where I'm like, I understand that you guys are very attracted to each other. Like you're both very hot people. You're very horny for each other. I understand. Like we can stop like repeating this over and over. And maybe if I was like more into them as a couple, it wouldn't have bothered me as much. Because that was another thing, is the romance was actually the part I was least invested in. I liked Jess and I liked River. Like I thought they had some really lovely moments together, but it didn't really, like I wasn't like excited about reading this book, you know, like clearly, because I kept putting it down. And when I was actually reading it, I would read it very quickly, but when I wasn't reading it, I never wanted to pick it up. You know, the fact that I took like 6 weeks to read this book even though it read so quickly, is an indication of that. Like all the other stuff about this book I liked more. I really loved the family stuff and the way that was handled. I thought the discussion of like fate and destiny and science and how much all of these things can determine like love and lasting relationships, I thought that was interesting. I think the book did a fairly good job of engaging with the like potentially icky like what's the word I'm looking for? Implications of this technology. Like, I don't remember if I mentioned this specifically, but right as I was getting kind of an icky feeling, this was near the beginning of the book when like River was explaining the process, Jess actually says, she's like, this sounds kind of like eugenics. And I was glad that she brought that up and that the book did kind of address that a little bit. Oh, and I also really enjoyed Juno, like the Jess's daughter, the way she was written. I think she was written really, really well, and I really liked all the like family moments with her and Jess and River. So I liked the family stuff. I liked the main characters. I liked the like discussion part of this, like kind of the, you know, the way it talked about like romance and relationships and how those things are affected by choice and science and, you know, destiny or anything. I liked all that, but the romance itself just didn't invest me at all, really. Like I said, the sex scenes got annoying. I also, like, Fizzy was so obnoxious to me. This is another thing I talked about already, so I'm sorry for repeating myself, but this is another thing that happened a lot in the epilogue and that, like, kind of lost some of my goodwill for this book, because, like, I was enjoying it at the point it wrapped up the main part of the book. It probably would have been a 4 stars, even though it would have been kind of a, like a barely 4 stars, you know, but like I was feeling pretty good about the novel. And then the epilogue happened and it kept doing all the things that bugged me. Yeah, like Fizzy just annoyed me so much. She had a couple of good scenes and a couple of places where she felt like an actual person instead of like just like the horny best friend trope who always is pushing her friend to get out there. Which I know that a lot of people really enjoyed her character. I can tell she's a fan favorite. This book, Fizzy, just got on my nerves. And she was in it kind of a lot. And while I like her and Jess's friendship in some ways, I like that we have this really close friendship. Like I said, she had some good scenes. Just every time she would be in the book, it bugged me. She felt like she only had like 2 personality traits, which are that she writes romance novels and that she's always like pushing Jess to like take more chances and get out there and everything. Like that's really most of what Fizzy did for like the whole book. And I just, yeah, she bugged me. So it sounds like I really didn't like this book. I did enjoy things about it. I also thought the dialogue was done really well, and the humor. I like Christina Lauren's writing. So like I said, I think my final rating for this one is going to be 3.5 stars, but I will see you guys when I actually start something and make some progress, which who knows when that will be. Okay, so I had to turn the fan off because I thought it would be too loud while I film, so we'll see how long I last. But I finished another book, you guys. Very exciting. So I started and finished this one today, and that is Unmask Me If You Can by Shauna Galen. Julia will be very happy because this was her I guess like official recommendation to me. I know she's wanted me to read this for a while. So this is a historical romance. I thought I should probably pick up a historical since I haven't read any of those yet, from my list, I mean. And we are following Olivia and Lord Jasper as our main characters. Olivia is a young woman with a son, and we know from very early in the book that the son is a child of a man who she was engaged to and who assaulted her. So heavy content warning for that. I don't think the book is super explicit about it, but it is very much part of the story. It is referenced quite a bit. Olivia is obviously very traumatized by what happened to her, so do go into this one with care. And then Jasper is our hero, and he is one of this group of men called the Survivors. That's like the name of this romance series. This is a book in the middle of the series. I think it's number 4. And he has been very badly scarred by something that happened to him in the war, and so he wears a mask. He's very self-conscious about this, and he's now kind of like a bounty hunter, basically. He helps find like people and things that people hire him for, and he has been hired by Olivia's parents to track her down and find her because her mother is dying and they want to see her again. And Olivia had run away after she was assaulted, so she's been living by herself with her son Richard for years now, at least I think 5 or 6 years. And Jasper does end up finding her, but he is injured. He's attacked by somebody on his way there, and Olivia ends up very warily taking him in and taking care of him, and they end up growing closer, but then they realize that they might still be in danger from Olivia's engaged husband, the man who assaulted her. So they're working together to try and bring him to justice, and to see if the two of them can build a life together, with Richard, of course. And I ended up really liking this one. I wasn't like the biggest fan at the beginning, just because I wasn't like hugely into the writing style, and it took me a little while to get into like the story. Like I liked Olivia and Jasper well enough at the beginning, but I wasn't super invested. And then I also found Richard, like he was fine, but like compared to some of the really well-written like children characters that I've read, like even in the Soulmate Equation, which even though I didn't love that book, I did think that child character was written really well. So in comparison to that, he's just kind of okay. But I wasn't like quite loving this at the beginning. And I did also, I should mention, I listened to probably between a half and 2/3 of this book on audio. That really helped me kind of get into it. Even though I have a hard time with audiobooks, if I'm like reading a book physically and then listening, that can help me push through. So I listened to like the first third of it, and then I read part of it in the middle, and then I listened to some more, and then I ended up finishing it physically. But I thought the audiobook was fine. It was pretty good. I started enjoying this book a lot more because like the absolute best thing about this book, I think, is that it has the best consent I have ever read from a romance book. Granted, my sample size is not as big as some people's, but one of the things that often like really bothers me with some historical romances is that I don't think there is enough focus on that. Like Jasper is so understanding about what Olivia is comfortable with. He's always so focused on if she feels safe. He tells her over and over that like asks her like for explicit confirmation if she wants him to do anything, if she wants him to keep going. He says that you can stop at any time, you can change your mind at any time. Like just the way that he is like so he cares so much about her, and he cares so much about her feeling safe and loved and never feeling pushed to do anything. And it's sad that that should be such a rare thing, but like I honestly, like I'm not exaggerating, this book, like the consent, the bar has been set so high. Like I was messaging Julie about this, and like I kept sending her like quotes or like talking about scenes to her, and I was like, other historical romance authors need to take note. And I know that there are other authors who write really good consent. I just am saying that from what I have read, this really just does it brilliantly. Like I can't say enough good things about how much of a focus that was. And then I also really ended up enjoying Olivia and Jasper just as characters, and I did enjoy their relationship. The sex scenes weren't my favorite, but they weren't bad. And like I keep repeating, the consent was just fantastic. The like love and tenderness that they have, and then also how Olivia has to realize that like he also has boundaries, or he also has things that he's not comfortable with. Like I mentioned that Jasper is really self-conscious about his scars and the fact that he feels like he has to cover them up with a mask and everything. And so Olivia does have to learn that that is something that he also has boundaries about, and I really like that. As far as the plot, I didn't like the way a couple of things were going closer to the end of the book, but I ended up being very pleased with the way those were done. I really liked that it avoided some things that I was kind of bracing myself for, but it didn't do them. And something I specifically really loved at the ending is that Jasper was a part of the solution, an important part, but it wasn't just him swooping in to save Olivia. Like, of course, I wanted him to be involved in, like, you know, assisting her because he cares about her and this is the right thing to do. But I really liked that Olivia still had a real hand in her own, I don't know, problem solving near the end. And they also had help from other people. That was something else I really enjoyed, is the glimpses that we see of Jasper's like comrades, like this group that they have that they've called themselves the Survivors, because they were part of a troop that unfortunately had a lot of men lost from it, and they were all very close. And so now the remaining ones call themselves the Survivors. And I really liked that we got to see that bond even just a little bit. I love how they were so quick to help Jasper and Olivia. Like, they obviously had questions about what was going on, but the fact that they were going to help and do everything in their power to help was never in question. And I really liked that. And I just ended up really enjoying this. Like, I probably would have given this maybe around a 3.5 stars, but because the like consent and the respect and the like handling of this trauma for Olivia, it was all just done so thoughtfully and with so much nuance and care. Like, Jasper is just a fantastic hero. Like, he's just like such a good guy. So all of that means that I bumped up this rating, and I'm giving Unmask Me If You Can 4 stars. So Julia, this is my current favorite so far, so you should feel good about that. I don't know which one I'll pick up next, and who knows when that will be, because as always I have a lot of other things that I need to read or want to read. I'm doing pretty good today. I have mentioned, I think it was in, I don't know if it was in this reading vlog or in a different one I'm filming at the same time, but I mentioned that I have been going through some really difficult mental health things, and it made me realize that I probably do need help and I should talk to someone. So I was able to make an appointment with a therapist, and that was yesterday, and it went, I think, really well. And yeah, like I'm trying to be more, I'm trying to like talk about that stuff more, because I think it's important for people to know that they're not alone and stuff like that. So if you feel like you are, you're not. And if getting professional help is an option for you, I hope that you consider trying it. And also, like, you don't have to have a certain level of unhappiness or difficulty to be deserving of help. You know, it's like you shouldn't, I think this was part of what made it take so long for me, is like just getting by, you know, just like treading water. Like everybody deserves better than that, you know? So if it is an option for you, I hope that you consider that. I know that different kinds of help are not like available for everyone, or are not the best option for everyone, but I just hope that you guys are doing as well as you can, and I will talk to you in my next update. Hey everybody. Okay, so I am back with what's going to be the last wrap-up section of this video, because I feel like I'm talking so much about these books that it's really just not feasible to put this all into one reading vlog. I'm not going to do a like reflection section in this part. I'm basically going to save all of that to the end of part 2, where I will read the rest of the books that I talked about. So wrapping up the one that I just read, or the most recent one I read, I finished If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy. This is the first book in the Meant to Be series, which is an adult romance series that is like loosely based on different fairy tales. This is put out by Disney, and I read this in just a couple days, which I've said before that like romance doesn't tend to be a fast read for me, even though I know it is for a lot of people. But I really enjoyed this one. I found it really engaging. I can't remember if I talked about like how much of the premise I talked about. So basically our main character is Cindy. She ends up becoming a guest on a Bachelor type show, and she's the first plus size contestant, and romance happens. She's also really into shoe design and fashion in general. So she's kind of looking to make her mark with that as well. That's why she originally like joins the show, is to try and get her designs out there. And I ended up really liking this. I'm gonna give it 4 stars. I really loved Cindy. I really loved her stepfamily. I like that this is a Cinderella retelling where the stepmother and stepsisters aren't horrible. Like I understand that's in the original, but I do like seeing retellings that do that a little differently, especially after you read so many of them. I enjoyed the show aspects. I really liked some of the friends that she makes at the show. Like the female friendship was great, and I like the discussion of like being friends with other women when you are put in a competition that is explicitly pitting you against each other. I thought that was really interesting. I loved the shoe and fashion elements, and the discussion of like what design and what like clothing and like that kind of self-expression, like how much that means and how important that is, and how it's not just shoes or just clothes. I just really liked that. One of the weak points for me was unfortunately the love interest. Like he was fine. Henry was okay. He just felt kind of bland in comparison. Like I really liked Cindy and I wanted her to be happy, so in that sense I cared about Henry, but like I don't know, they had a couple of cute scenes together, but like he just didn't feel like a super interesting character to me. Also, this is more like a personal preference thing. So like for context, I don't really watch reality TV. I've never watched any kind of like Bachelor type show, but I feel like when you're watching that show in the real world, or like you know, contestants on that show in the real world, there's this understanding that like the main person is going to be dating multiple people at once. Like that's literally the point of the show. So I feel like that makes sense. Whereas in a romance book, you are obviously, like the author is obviously trying to sell the readers on the idea that, I mean, that they're meant to be. It's the Meant to Be series. So they're trying to sell us on the idea that the contestant and our main character have a special connection, and we're supposed to see that their romance is the real thing. And so when you have that assumption, it kind of feels weird that Henry is like dating and kissing other women. Like it feels just a tiny bit like cheating. I don't know. I don't think it's supposed to, and that wasn't like because I didn't have super strong feelings about Henry, it like wasn't a big deal, but like that is something that I just felt was kind of weird about the way this book handled the premise. But so I wonder if maybe that kind of like dating show setup maybe just isn't for me. I also really love that body positivity was such a focus here, and I like that Cindy isn't, this is not a journey about like Cindy accepting herself. It's about making other people accept her, and like realizing that she doesn't have to waste her time with people who don't. And I really like that. I've heard this compared with One to Watch, and that basically this book did all of that better. Which like I haven't read that one, but I do definitely feel like this book handled things really, really well. But overall, I did really enjoy this, and I gave If the Shoe Fits 4 stars. Okay, everybody, so that is the first half of my romance reading vlog experiment. Like I said, I'm not gonna do a like wrap up or reflection section in this video because I want to save time. So I'll save all of that for after I finish the rest of the books. But yeah, hopefully like this will, like posting this part, I'm hoping will like motivate me to finish the rest of it, because I have been working on this vlog for way too long and it's kind of embarrassing. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you soon with another video, and I hope you love the next book you read. Bye!